So here's the good news with regards to lesson 14 and the political systems exam. This is the political systems exam, not the economic exam. So much of lesson 14 still has economics in it. So we need to understand what do we need to study from this lesson and what don't we need to study. So when we talk about the economic miracle under Adolf Hitler's regime, that's more of the economic model, right? So when we talk about his 4-year plans, and we even had that additional lesson, that 14A lesson, where we had all of that information about his economic vision. That won't be on the exam. What will be on the exam? Well, you need to know what fascism is. You need to know the ideology of fascism. You need to understand that fascism at heart is the observation that people are not equal. And we're going to create a system that allows those that are more capable than others to be in positions of power so that their strength can guide society to become even stronger. That within fascism we have elements of the great man theory. Within fascism we have elements of social Darwinism, the strong feeding on the weak, the strong doing what they can, the weak suffering what they must, from Athenian realism. So there will be at least one question about fascism, and there will be another question where you contrast fascism and communism. And the key difference is not the techniques that they use to maintain power, but the vision of society that they're attempting to achieve. Communism is attempting to overcome inequality and create egalitarianism. In theory, that's what Marx wanted. And in theory, fascism is about exaggerating the inequality. So that's the theory side of fascism. You might see names like Schopenhauer and Sorel and Gentile and Carlyle. So looking over your cast of characters is always a good step to get into being prepared for multiple choice. But in terms of the other content of this lesson, some of the major events would be Adolf Hitler's purge, the Night of Long Knives. I could see a reference maybe to that, where he uses the power of the SS to eliminate the leader of the SA, that he looked around his emerging Nazi Germany and said, who can stand up to me now? And he feared that Ernst Röhm, the leader of the SA, might become a rival within his own party, within his own movement. So you could see that. You could see reference to, under what conditions does fascism grow? The massive unemployment, the wounded national pride, the instability of democracy, right? The forever elections and changing of governments. So you could see a question about that. There might be a connection to the Holocaust, to the Nuremberg laws, to the domestic policy of trying to clarify who can be a German citizen and who cannot, and how the Nuremberg laws lead to the Holocaust. First, you had to define Jewish people as non-German and non-human, and then you can justify the Holocaust. So you might see some domestic policy questions that focus on the politics or the social aspect of Nazis, but not so much the economic stuff. So that does eliminate more than half of this lesson. We could see a reference to Nazi Germany and their electoral system that allowed Adolf Hitler a chance to go from a leader of a minority party to the Reichschancellor. So they had proportional representation. And that was key because the Nazis didn't need to win any races. They just needed to have enough to warrant one seat. Well, when you have more than 500 seats in the Reichstag, then you need 1/5 of 1% to get a seat in their house. And in 1928, they had 12 seats. So they're a fringe party. But once they were in the Reichstag, then he had the opportunity to get the public's attention. He had the stage. He had the public's attention, and he used his charisma and he used the chaos surrounding Germany to increase the popularity of his party. So we could see something like this chart there that looks at the rise of the Nazis from 12 to 230 within 4 years. And then they do dip back a little bit in November, but then by March 1933 and then November 1933, by November 1933, they're the only party left. March, they are the biggest party, but Hitler doesn't get the majority that he wants, so what he ends up doing is he passes the Enabling Act. And the use of the Enabling Act to change a democracy into a dictatorship is another testable concept. The idea that they had both a chancellor as a head of government and a president as a head of state, and the president was Hindenburg, that could pop up. The things that are key here are in bold. We also yesterday looked at the techniques of dictators, and they will definitely be on the exam. So when you look at the exam, there will be a list of techniques of dictatorship, and there'll be examples there of what Adolf Hitler did, and those will be contrasted with what Stalin did. The lack of separation of power, so that would be something that Montesquieu would look in and say, this is why we have a problem within Nazi Germany, is there's no check on the power of Adolf Hitler. He's the head of the executive branch, but he also controls the legislative branch because his party is the only party in the legislative branch, and he has the ability to set the judges. So he has changed Germany into an autocracy. I think I almost said it right. A leader of one. So there's your Schopenhauer, Sorel, and Nietzsche, and Gentile. Notice, please, Gentile's with the G, not a J. Some of you keep spelling it with a J. But that's Nazi Germany. So there's lots of other stuff in here about economics. That's not going to be the focus on this Friday's test. On the diploma exam, we tend to see more questions about Stalin's economics and Hitler's politics, because the economic policies surrounding Stalin are a little more clear than those surrounding Adolf Hitler. So even looking forward to the multiple choice test in June, the diploma test, you're probably more likely to just see the political and maybe the social side of Hitler, and for Stalin, you might see the political and the economic side as the basis of multiple choice questions. So that's the essence of lesson 14. It's a big lesson, but we need to know what to study. And what to study is his ideology, what is fascism, connecting it to Schopenhauer, Gentile, and Sorel, and others. How is that different than communism? We need to study the electoral system of proportional representation and how that allows him to take a fringe party into becoming the biggest party in the Reichstag by 1932. The conditions under which that rise happens, the mass unemployment, the wounded national pride. We need to understand his domestic vision that included the elimination of the Jewish people, that included the elevation of some people at the expense of others. And that's part of the social program too, the pure Aryan race. Any questions about lesson 14? Let's get you a look at lesson 15, and we'll probably begin class later by me reviewing lesson 15 with you.